Welcome to the next episode of Hustle and Air. We're your hosts, Nena,
And Mimi.
and today we're going to be talking about wealth. What does that look like to you? How do you think you're going to be attaining your wealth? What are some of the things that you've observed in your life that is going to help you reach your wealth or money goal? Now, going into conversations that we've had in the past, we've always talked about, what our finance goals are, how we think we're going to attain them. What are some of the things that are most important to us that we should set some goals for and strive for? And I really want to ask you, have you done anything, as 2020 is still unfolding to move towards attaining some of those goals?
Yes, super excited for this topic and this conversation. And I think it's so timely to have this conversation about wealth. I know most of the world is aware that we are in the middle of a pandemic and things are changing. The way we work is changing. A lot of us are working remotely. We're recording this podcast remotely for the very first time.
That is a great point that you brought up, Mimi. Definitely, it has been challenging to figure out how to pretty much put our lives into the hands of technology. But I think we're doing a pretty good job, and it's definitely shown a light on how we can change the aspects of how we work.
Absolutely. And, the question that you've asked about wealth and, how we're working or how I'm working to achieve my goals as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
I think diversifying is something that has always been a really important point, whether it's in stocks
For sure.
or whether it's, how you're managing your investment. I think even as we look at entrepreneurship, making sure, or not making sure, but thinking about having more than one business or more than one line of income has been really important. So for myself, talking about diversifying in multiple streams of income, I have an e-commerce store. I'm launching a blog as well. And I'm also very into the natural hair community as well. And I have a very small page, which I'm building. And I hope to continue to grow. And eventually, I would like to move into consulting as it relates to my professional career, my day-to-day 9 to 5. Anything that you're working on to kind of diversify and work towards reaching your goals, Nana?
Like you, I definitely have a few things that I have on the go that are personal and professional. So, of course, on a professional standpoint, the dream is to, or the goal, should I say, is to, of course, one day own and operate my own marketing agency in relation to the different aspects of of marketing. So, as it pertains to entertainment, as it pertains to hospitality, as it pertains to hotelier, which is some of the things that I'm very passionate about. From a personal standpoint, of course, I'm still continuing to build and nurture my personal styling endeavors. So I have a company called the Style Dome, which I do personal styling. I do photo shoots and branding styling as well. And I do full on wardrobe. If you're looking to completely reinvigorate your style, I'm your go to girl. So I'm doing a lot of that personally, and I definitely enjoy that. It's a pleasure to be able to find ways to attract multiple streams of income without losing who you are and without getting too overwhelmed, right? You want to take things that are your hobbies that you can monetize within reason. You don't just want to be somebody who is kind of flailing and is all over the place. Have an idea, make a blueprint. One thing I did when I was really trying to take my Style Dome hobby account from, just posting pictures to monetizing it was sitting down and creating a program Bible, if you want to call it. So something that outlines, the 5 services that I handle, price wise, what the day-to-day, what the whole procedure would look like from beginning to end, just to give your potential customers a visual of where, the kind of story that you want to create with them. So that was very important to me. Growing up, we've always been taught to think outside of the box, always make sure that you have some sort of stability, but still, using your creative juices to create.
I love that. I think sometimes when we're going through life, we think the things that we enjoy, we can't make money from it, but we absolutely can.
100%. Yeah, I agree.
And that's one thing I found with the store that we are running, my family store. We sell satin lined wraps and turbans, and due to the times, we've actually branched out and started making fabric masks.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
Fabric protective face masks.
That is amazing.
It's been pretty cool. And, being flexible with the times and being able to adjust your business is really important.
Very important.
And, going back to that topic of wealth, actually, I've noticed a few articles on the internet of people, millionaires, losing money during this time.
Mm-hmm.
So, being able to protect yourself in a time of a pandemic, being able to retain your wealth, developing strategies that are going to create generational wealth for years and years and years to come is really critical. And who would have thought that pandemic planning is something to incorporate into your wealth strategy plan? I never did.
I think one of the big takeaways from this is it's something that needs to be built into every plan. I think when people go into creating a business or, creating a plan, creating a blueprint, we never really think about what if the market crashes? What if this happens? What if we don't have any customers for a year? I think people only prepare for that in the very beginning stages because it's a slow incline to, garnering customers, but we don't think about that in the middle of things. We don't think about that 5 years in. We don't think about 10 years in. And I think the pandemic has really shown us that we got to be ready for anything at any time, right? I mean, absolutely. A lot of restaurants have had to close and have had no other means of creating jobs for their employees. And some have adapted very well with just, hey, we're going to go straight to takeout, straight to online, and really utilizing the technology that we have in order to be able to move the needle no matter what. Just building on that a little bit, I think that sometimes, I know a lot of the conversation right now is around the pandemic, but there has been in the past other things that hold us back. And I think when I say us, I like to refer to African American and Caribbean our brothers and sisters here who are feeling like a lot of things are working against them and not for them. And it's because there's a disparity between information, lack of understanding, lack of education is one. And another one is a lot of times, it's just getting in your own head and thinking, I can't do it because nobody before me has done it and nobody after me has done it or tried to do it. And I think that's something that we really need to fight against in order to get ahead, because risk takers, people who just go and do it and get into the grind and get into the rhythm, tend to be the ones that win, tend to be the ones that make it, tend to be the ones that survive, and tend to be the ones that become millionaires. And we need to take that into consideration when we're going into different businesses and different ventures. Tell your friends, don't be afraid to go out there and go into a room of people that you may not know. If you need that investment, if you need that person to believe in whatever you're selling, feel free to be the best seller for your item or for your restaurant or for your style company or for your family run business. So we need to have the courage. I think that's a big one. Just having the courage to go out there and win is very important.
I completely agree with what you've said. I think in a lot of families, there aren't examples of people who have done it before them. Sometimes they're the first even just to graduate high school, go to university, get a steady job, and hopefully down the line, if you're an entrepreneur or if you're launching a business. So going back, whether it's in history, in our families, when you look at wealth, who has it? Who doesn't have it? Does wealth, how do we become a person of wealth or a family of wealth? Can it be anybody? Has our history impacted our wealth potential?
From my perspective, I absolutely think history has detected, to a certain extent, how our wealth has been divided on this side of the world. Now, we have to all think about being first or second generation children of immigrants. And sometimes most of the time, that didn't give us a leg up because we had parents coming to this country who didn't understand the system or didn't know the system well enough to be able to impart it on us. And outside of that, a lot of what we learned or a lot of what we're learning, we learned as adults, or we learned as teenagers, or we learned from other people who maybe had a leg up. So I think that was part of it. I think another big part of it is we don't take the same level of risk, I think, that other cultures do. And we have a huge issue, I think, with working together. I think that's something that we need to focus on quite a bit in order to get ahead. Many other cultures have mastered understanding how to work together. And I think that's how culture is cultivated. That's how wealth is cultivated when it's community based. I mean, if somebody opens a store or somebody has a restaurant, everyone flocks there to make sure that it stays open and flourishes. And one of the big things about that is when you see a crowd of people all together, you automatically want to go and see what's going on. You're automatically engaged in, okay, if everybody's going there, it must be great. I want to go try it too. Fear of missing out. We need to really massage that into the diaspora. I think that's a big thing for us to be able to get ahead. And I see that happening all day. I think, there's been a lot of buy Black campaigns, buy local campaigns. I know there's been a lot of buy Nigerian campaigns, and buy from other African countries campaigns, because we understand now that this is how the Western world has managed to keep the wealth within. And I look forward to what the next 5 to 10 years is going to look like when, we've mastered this, when we take back our hair stores, like I've said before, being that, that's probably one of the biggest misses that we have is the hair community, the hair culture, and that is completely ours to own. And we need to get back to owning it.
Absolutely.
Right.
That idea of risk, courage, and unity is so critical to the success of our people.
Absolutely.
And I think, something that really stands out is that idea. Well, in my mind, this is what I think, in some cases has happened. Everybody is just really fighting to survive, that it's hard to bring up other people.
Right.
But in working together, you can go further.
Yeah.
So, kind of embracing that risk. I love that because I'm very risk adverse, but, being able to take risks, I think that's wonderful. And of course, we go further together. So in terms of attaining wealth for us, I think you've totally nailed it on the head. How we can work together as a people to move ourselves forward and move our communities forward. It's so critical to support each other.
It's so critical. And I mean, whenever I can, wherever I can, I always like to go with a Black business first. I always try to go with, a person of color, where warranted, because I know that the wealth is now staying within us, and that's the key to our success, right? So I love that. I love.
But why did it? It took us a bit longer to get to that point.
It did take us.
Thinking that way.
Right. You're right. It did take us a little longer to get here. Um, and I think it's just outside sources that have honestly been, trying to separate and divide and conquer. You know what I mean? I think that's all it's been this whole time. But, you know, like we like to say, I mean, I think we're woke right now.
Way woke.
Way woke.
So woke.
Too woke. We're
now you can't keep us quiet no more.
listen. We don't even know how to be quiet anymore. It's just like, okay, just let him go. Let him finish.
Mm-hmm.
Give him the tape.
Yeah, well, after being silenced for so long,
yeah.
After being silenced for so long, we have a lot to say. We got a lot of time to make up for.
Exactly. After being silenced for so too long, we didn't even just want the stage. We wanted the whole auditorium. All of y'all got to sit down and listen. You know what I mean? It's like we're here now. We've arrived, and the Canadian dream is going to be ours. So
ours.
Just touching on the Canadian dream a little bit. What does that look like to you? Do you feel like you're living the Canadian dream? Do you feel like your parents feel like they're living the Canadian dream? I mean, they are the ones who, migrated. Are they happy with coming here and feeling like they won life, so to say? Cliche.
When I look at the life that my parents have built for us, they are proud, absolutely, because when you leave another country, you leave your family behind to build something better for your own family. If you can educate yourself, at a very high level and educate your children at a high level as well, that's the first accomplishment, for a lot of African parents and families. And, owning a home, having, several cars, being productive and active, participating community members in the new culture that you are now living in.
Yeah.
I think when we look at that, yes, absolutely, those successes have been exceeded, I would say. But now that expectation, I think the Canadian dream for a lot of African families is that the kids exceed what the parents have been able to accomplish.
Right.
And I think those are great. It's almost like a double-edged sword because I think it comes with a lot of expectation and a lot of pressure.
Yep.
And some people can take that as motivation to succeed and exceed, or it can be crippling and lead to failure. I'm going to flip that question back to you. Have you reached the Canadian dream? Has your family been able to achieve the dream they sought for?
So same as you, I think, it rings true. Like, of course, my parents both again came to this country as students, and initially my dad's plan was to study and go home. It was not to stay. But obviously those plans changed, and they did end up staying. So I think the Canadian dream was definitely felt, seen, and accomplished by them, and they pushed us to be great at everything we do, to excel at everything we do, and nothing else like any other African household nothing else less was accepted than A's and all that kind of great stuff. I mean, you got a B, and it's like that. What's this kind of message?
Absolutely.
And of course, like you, I believe in healthy pursuit or healthy pressure in order to lead your children down the right path and to lead them to greatness, or to lead them to whatever they may feel like is going to be great for them. So I think they did that. It was never too much pressure. It was just the right amount. It was parental pressure. And that is the type of pressure that is warranted and needed in order for you to excel. And I think we've all done that quite well. It's the four of us. And, we've all excelled in all of our stages in lives. And we're now all functioning adults, individually. They are very proud of the people that we have become today. And it's a testament to who they are as parents and who they are as people. So, of course, going forth into the world as we start to build our own families, I can't say that, before when you're young and going through the motions of life, you think it's too much, but then you get to a certain point in your life and you're like, okay, you know what? Thank you, mom and dad. Like I needed that at that time and I didn't know it. And I know that for my children, I plan on having healthy pressure on them as well, because only excellence is born and bred and raised here. Okay.
Black excellence all
That's
the
it.
way.
All the time, all the way. Excellente. Okay.
Keep that fire hot.
Thank you. The scorching hot. So no, I mean, kudos to them and kudos to all the immigrants that have come here and built their wealth and maintained and attained some of the greatest business ventures, and community wealth that we've seen in a long time. I mean, without you and your example to us and to the community, we wouldn't be able to, we wouldn't think we could do it. So it's important, I think, to acknowledge that for sure. One of the bigger things that I think is also interesting in knowledge, although we love and appreciate and cherish those who have accumulated wealth, we also want to also remember that there are people that are not as are at a disadvantage. Maybe they do know it or they don't know it, but there's still a huge wealth gap in this country. And I think that's a very big conversation that needs to be had and dealt with. And, I think the wealth gap obviously is heavily skewed towards the African and Caribbean communities, people of color, just because of the history of the country. And so that's a big conversation, and that's something that we need to figure out. How do we maneuver through that? Like, what do we do to socially and economically get ahead without feeling like we're going to get stonewalled, whether it's for that job, or whether it's for a loan, or whether it's for that investor? Like, how do we navigate that? Have you, Mimi, had any instances or examples of when you felt like you were being affected by the wealth gap, and how did you handle it? Or, what did you think needed to change, or did you speak up about it?
Mm-hmm. So when we were preparing for this podcast, I was doing, some research online just to find out a little bit more. Initially, I think you suggested the subject of Dangote. And I thought to myself, okay, let me read up about this man. I actually didn't know much about him. My family was familiar with him.
Terrible.
Well, thank the Lord for the internet.
I know.
So I had a really great time reading about, different Black people that are doing really well. And it was so inspiring. I'm like, these folks are great. We've got the Oprahs, Tyler Perry, Serena Williams, Michael Jordan, the Dangote, Beyonce. There are a lot of really amazing examples of people who started from humble beginnings, or people who have inherited money, and have built on it. Yep. And I think that is a huge testament to how strong we really are. Mm-hmm. But here, to your question, is where I really felt that inequity in terms of wealth. Then I started looking at the richest people in the world. Obviously, we know Jeff Bezos is number one. Yep. He's up there. And I started going through the list. I was like, oh, okay, this is great. There's 100 people here. I'm sure there'll be, a person of color on this list. Based on the list that I was looking at, we don't appear on the list of billionaires, on the current Forbes list of billionaires, until number 207. So that means out of the 2,200 billionaires in the world, according to Wikipedia, this is a 2019 stat, 0.77% are Black. That means there's about 15 Black billionaires in the world.
Wow.
I've felt inequity before. I'm a person of color. I felt it in a lot of different instances.
Same.
But I felt it And I got angry in that moment when I was doing my research because our richest African person is not even on the list of the richest people in the world, on the top 100 richest people in the world. I really felt that, and it made me really angry. And I wanted to know why that happened. Why does that gap exist? Why is there still such inequality in 2020?
That's huge. That is so huge. That is a true testament to what we as people of color go through on a daily basis. Can you believe, like, 200th person, 200 plus person before you get to a person of color? Mind you, there is a lot of millionaires and billionaires of African and Caribbean descent that are all over the globe. But the fact that we're so far down just shows how marginalized we really are and how forgotten we really are. And it resonates in our day-to-day. It resonates in the day-to-day, just even with dividing out salaries, dividing out benefits, dividing out healthcare benefits, dividing different things that play a major part in the success of our lives. And it's like, what do we do? What do we got to do? What do we got to say? What are we not saying? What conversations are we not having that is creating such a gap? And what is holding us back from holding people accountable for this? Because I think that's what we're really missing. We're not the best at holding people accountable, and an easy like, we're sorry seems to be enough for us. But we're sorry with no action is not good enough.
I completely agree with you. I think that lack of courage, going back to your point, is so noticeable. Sometimes we're just happy to be here.
Yeah.
We're just happy to be here, happy to have a seat. We're not happy to be the president, to be the CEO, to be the owner, because we're better off than a lot of other people already.
I agree. I think we don't strive for those positions in office, and it doesn't have to be in office, whatever it may be, opening that business, going to the bank and saying, this is what I've got now, this is the plan that I've got for you, and this is where my money's going to garner me in a year, and not having that confidence because we feel like it's not our place. We feel like we shouldn't take that risk. We feel like we shouldn't speak up. And we need to get out of that mode. If I want to be vice president, I'm going to be vice president. I know he's a bad example to bring up, but Trump is not qualified for nothing. Okay.
I love that. If we could have the confidence of a mediocre white man, think of how much further we could go along.
Amen. Girl, if you don't sit down and shut the front door, like, damn. Say that again for the people in the back pew.
Let us have that confidence of mediocre white men. Look at how far it took them. Like you said, it took an average, unqualified, bigoted, mediocre man to the highest office in the United States.
Thank you. Not a qualification in sight that made that man but you know what? He believed it. He believed it, and he made other people believe it, even when he wasn't qualified. That's so key. And I'm not saying if you're not qualified for something, that you shouldn't recognize that you're not qualified, but get qualified. Make yourself qualified. Figure out what you got to do to get that position, because you deserve to be in that seat just as much as anybody else. And if you have to fake it till you make it, that's what you got to do, because that's what this man did. And he's still faking it, and he's still in there.
And he will toot his horn the loudest.
The loudest.
For doing the worst.
We got to get into that mode. You know, I've walked to the beat of my own drum for a while, and after my first job, I realized that's exactly who I need to be. That's exactly how I need. So nothing stops me from asking for the most, expecting the most, wanting the most, and you need to deliver the most. in order to get me into
Yes,
when
absolutely. Because even on your worst day, you are still doing a lot better than the average mediocre white male.
Amen to that. Amen. Still doing better. And people need to just listen. We can't start to preach up in here. You know what I'm saying? It can't turn into a sermon.
No, but your point is valid. Expect a lot and deliver a lot. Deliver the most. Deliver the best. Be the best.
That's it. You go into that interview, you make them know that they need you just as much as you need them. It's not a one-way street in interviews. You got to ask them questions. Why should I come and work for you?
Exactly.
It's not just about them. It's not just about you. You're not on the hot seat. They're on the hot seat too. They need your expertise. They need your skill set. They brought you into that room for a reason. You got to ask them, why should I work for you? Why should I give you what I know? Why should I impart, my intelligence onto you? Put them on the hot seat. Trust me, it's going to move mountains. It's going to shift. It's going to send a shift into your life that you've never seen before.
High risk, high reward.
Amen.
Do you think that when it comes to money and wealth, that there's a difference between, let's say, new money and old money? Or is all money just good money?
Well, first of all money is good money, okay? As long as it's legal, it's all good. But I think there's definitely a divide between old money and new money. Old money is more refined. It's traditional. It's not looked at as a sign of, we made it. It's more quiet. And don't get me wrong, there are some old money people who have new money relatives who get a little out of hand. Let's go buy a boat on Tuesday. But I think for sure, old money, they have a softness about them. They're much more giving, I think, in a way. And they understand the importance of accumulating wealth and keeping it and not just splurging. Because you run into, look at some of these athletes. You run into situations where, and a lot of them are new money, right? They came from very, very humble beginnings, maybe even folks that were poor. And, they get their first million, they get their first 2 million. And what do? It's the chains, it's the expensive cars, it's, some of the more frivolous things that over time are not going to mean much. It's the smarter ones. They put them in, they invest, they get into real estate, they get into stocks, they get into some of those things that will, after their career is closed or done, they'll be able to still live on some of that wealth. So I think if I had to choose, of course, old money, because it's a way of life. It's a part of you. You're not shook by it. You're not led by it almost, right? You're refined. Whereas I think new money, it's a little too loud. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy, a nice Birkin bag or a nice Louis Vuitton bag, like the next girl. But I think the issue with new money as well is a lot of new money is in the African and the Caribbean communities, in the people of color communities. It's not so much in the white communities, right? They've had the wealth for a while. This is their land. So they've got my grandfather's grandfather's grandfather, was here. I think new money is definitely something that's happening to us. It's happening fast and furious, and not everybody knows how to handle it. And so sometimes they get it, they crash and burn, and others flourish. We just have to find a way to not be, already as people of color, we're already quite colorful and cultural, and that comes out a lot in our personalities. And so once we get a little money, it just bursts like Skittles. So we have to find a way to kind of refine that and bring that down to a T. But I think it's possible over the next maybe, few years, decades, hopefully. We're praying for our peeps. They will definitely be able to look at it and be like, okay, yeah, I do spend this much on this, and not wear it as a badge of honor, like, and I'm better than you, but be able to give to charity freely and not think like you have to put it on social media, which is a new wave thing now. Everything has to be for the public. So,
Mm-hmm.
I hope to see the evolution of how that looks in the next little while for sure.
Yeah.
What's your take on it? What do you think? Do you think there's a big divide between old money and new money, and which one would you rather be?
Well, I think I have a new money mentality, but I always like to say that because I'm an immigrant, maybe that's why I am that way.
Tell
Because
people.
I want, I like to see my success. I want to see the evidence of my hard work. If I'm working, I want to see it. Now,
Right.
obviously, being smart about it is key. I agree with a lot of things you said about new money and old money, and the way that they've kind of worked together or not together over the years. Old money frowned on new money wants to show old money what they have. But I think as time is progressing and as technology is advancing, a lot of white space has been created there. And like you said, there are a lot of new money. There's a lot of new money coming up
Yeah.
because there's a lot of space that people are filling. And I think it's throwing the old money off a little bit because now it's not just athletes
Right.
that are rich.
Yep.
It's not just actors that are rich.
Exactly.
We have business people who are doing really well.
Very well.
But that holding on to it, I think, has been a challenge. I can't, obviously doesn't apply to everyone, but it is certainly hard to hold on to wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Investing wisely and smartly is really important.
Mm-hmm.
I think one reason why it gets difficult for people of color to hold on to wealth is the responsibility to look after more than just themselves
Mm-hmm.
or their immediate family. When somebody becomes wealthy,
that's a good point.
the community that they come from looks to them. The extended family looks to them.
Mm-hmm.
Even friends sometimes look to them
Very true.
for employment. Because if you make it, we all made it.
That is very true. And that is definitely something that divides white old money per se, as opposed to new money, which is typically people of color, because they're just coming into kind of being given the forte or the floor to make that level of money. And of course, in particular, African families, we tend to be larger. You're right. So, it's not the 2.5 kids with a picket fence and a dog. Typical African families range from, 4 to more children. So there's a lot more mouths to feed. So I can definitely agree with that. That's definitely a point that, is important when discussing old money and new money.
But the nice thing is that people are getting more creative. And I think when we think of wealth and money, sometimes people think, oh, the more money I have, the happier I'll be. Some people think more money, more problems.
More money we come across, more problems easy.
It's a classic. But when I look at Hollywood, and obviously Hollywood is not the full picture, but it's visible and it's something that people can relate to. There have been wealthy people or people with lives that would have been enviable who ended their lives. Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade, Robin Williams. Mental health obviously plays a part in some of these or all of these cases.
Yeah.
But I would have looked at somebody like Anthony Bourdain, definitely Robin Williams, and thought they've made it. They're happy. They are recognized. They are rich. They are living the dream.
Mm-hmm.
And when they end their lives, it's confusing because to us, it looks like they have everything.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, for me, I watched Anthony Bourdain, and, as an avid traveler, I definitely relish in the fact that he's able to travel all over the world. and taste these wonderful foods from many different countries, and he's definitely been someone who has inspired me to want to go to some of the places that I have, and in fact, traveled to. So to see that, along with Robin Williams, Kate Spade, and many others who've either died by, with mental health issues or drug overdoses, and thought, hey, you know what? From the outside looking in, they have it all together. Once you have money and you're living comfortably, what else could you, and your family is healthy and you're healthy, what else could you possibly need or want, right? And some of those people talked about feeling very alone in a world that, in a world they've created that makes it feel like they're not alone, like makes it feel like they've got it all. And so, the question of, does money make you happy, or is money the root of all happiness, is, the obvious answers are no. The obvious answer is there's no way. If you have no one around you, if you have no loved ones around you, if you don't have support around you, and you are just coming home to your money every night, I think at first you're going to feel like you're fulfilled, because you feel like with money that will eventually bring people. But in the long run, as we can see with some of these folks, at the end of the day, it was really love that they were after. It was really companionship, peace of mind that they were after, right? And so we have to really, as much as we chase the dream, as much as we chase the coin, as we like to say, is, what is the root of that? Once we attain that to a certain level, once we attain that to a certain comfortability, have we also nurtured all the other relationships and aspects of our lives so that it can all come together? Because in order to be truly happy, all of it has to be one, and all of it has to come together.
Absolutely. I don't know if you've experienced this as you are developing your businesses. I get hungrier as I'm getting more creative or more advanced in some of my entrepreneurial adventures. It's almost a little bit addictive. So I can see how people may potentially end up really unhappy in the end, because like you said, it's a very holistic approach to being happy in life. It's a very tricky balance to keep things in alignment, because it's very easy to get so focused on your goals. The closer you get to your goals, you set new goals, that you start to put the blinders fall, and the things that were and are important to you start being less important, because you are so focused. You want to keep doing better, keep creating more. So I understand how that happens, because entrepreneurship and success are very addictive. And also, failure also becomes addictive too, because that's an opportunity for you to reflect, look back, and say, how am I going to make it better? How am I going to win the next time I do this? I could stay up late into the night sometimes figuring things out, because I know I'm close to figuring a problem that will lead to a breakthrough. It's very addictive.
Very addictive. It becomes very silo, right? Because you want to be able to, you're fixated all of a sudden on winning and cracking the code, so to say. So everything else, you just block everything else out, right? You want to focus. So that's definitely a big thing for us. And no one is saying don't be focused and don't silo yourself sometimes, and to, drown out the noise. But it's important to also remember to have a healthy balance. And that's what we want to promote. We want you to be as wealthy as your mind can dream of, but also remember to nurture all the other aspects of your life, so that when you do reach that pinnacle, you obviously have some people to share it with, right? That's the most important.
You won't be alone.
We won't be alone. Exactly. That's the most important. So diving into like just some inspirational folks that have done very well for themselves, most of them self-made millionaires. We thought we'd highlight a few. So of course, I think everybody should know, and our listeners should definitely know, as we all take part in reading some of the juicy gossip and news that comes out of this social platform, the Shade Room. So the Shade Room was created by a young lady named Angelica Nwodu. Now, this was created back in 2014, so not too long ago, actually. And, obviously she probably started off slow and steady, talking about news, talking about gossip, talking about celebrities and things that they are and are not doing. And it's just ballooned into a $1 million company. And we just wanted to shout her out, 31 years old, doing the damn thing, an amazing entrepreneur spirit she had to get this off the ground. And go Angelique, the Shade Room, check her out. And then we have Alexia Ohan, or Ohana, also known as
Serena Williams' husband.
He is the co-founder of Reddit. Now, Reddit started back in 2005 with him, and I believe one of his college buddies. I'm not sure. He's currently 36 years old. They sold Reddit a couple of years ago, and bang, they became millionaires right out the gate. And he has a few other. Right now, he actually is sitting on the board at Reddit. So he went back to work for Reddit, and he's pretty much just kind of the executive account, overseeing a lot of their bigger accounts, which he obviously started off first. And then finally, from an athletic point of view,
and Canadian,
right here from Toronto, we have Tristan.
Not that we're necessarily proud of everything this man has done. He's still Canadian.
But nonetheless, he's Canadian. He's Jamaican Canadian. And his name is Tristan Thompson. As you all know, he plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he is one of the Kardashians' arm candy. So he is also obviously self-made. I mean, he's been playing for the Cavaliers, I think, for his whole career. And he's currently with them right now. So he's another story of, coming out of Toronto, coming out of Canada. Basketball is not seen as a sport that is normally associated with Canadians. And it's great to see that a lot of Canadians are making a splash on the professional level. And of course, with the Toronto Raptors holding the current championship for the 2019 NBA champions, it's really shown a light on some of the great athletes that we have in the country. So that kind of wraps up our inspiration, and, just encouraging you to let you know that you can do it too. Don't let anything stop you, no matter where you are in your walk of life, no matter the obstacles you're in, no matter the wealth gap that you think that you're experiencing, that it's only an experience, and you have the opportunity to change that. Right, Mimi?
Absolutely. Part of the reason why we feel it's important to have these conversations is to celebrate our people and the accomplishments of our people. And back in February, we talked about celebrating our Blackness 365 days a year. We are doing great things. We continue to inspire, learn from each other, and we just are excited to be able to talk about it and share with our H&H listeners who are looking to level up. We are here for it. We support it. And we want to hear your stories. If you're an entrepreneur, let us know. Drop it in the comment box. Drop a crown in the comment box if you're listening.
Tell us about your business. We'd love to hear about it. We'd love to be able to promote it. We want to help everybody reach their success goals. That's for our H&H Crown listeners. Stay the course. Stay connected.
As we wrap up this episode, we just want to remind our listeners that there is no reward without that risk. And once you have achieved your success, please don't forget about the people who supported you. Give back to your community if you can, and each one reach one. We truly believe in mentorship and support. If you have knowledge that can help others grow, develop, and level up, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Absolutely. We want to continue to level up as a community, as a group of people.
Thanks, Mimi. That's amazing. And I concur. I mean, whatever we can do to help each other, to teach one, reach one, that's so important as we head into, the next quarter of 2020. We just want to take a moment to thank our essential workers and healthcare professionals during this trying time. We really appreciate all your efforts. And remember, everyone, stay home and stay safe so we can beat this virus.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We're so glad that you were able to share this time with us. Don't forget to leave us a great review, share this podcast, and follow us on Instagram at Hustle and Heir. Our podcast is currently available on Apple, Spotify, and SoundCloud.
Great show.
We did it.
We did it.
First remote.
Technology is always working for us, I guess.